the key way to find a niche is look for a combination of elements. You want to look for the intersection between two things, and that can potentially find an area that provides solutions for people. So you can start with just the problem that someone has, but I think it's actually a little bit faster to look at a crossover between two areas. And I'll give you a really good example of this, which is sunglasses. Sunglasses is not a niche, that's a product category. A niche is where you go inside sunglasses and you look for specific ones. For example, sunglasses for people who are runners, sunglasses for people who are hunting, sunglasses for people who spend a lot of time on the water. They might be fishing or using different watercraft and they need polarizing lenses to be able to see properly. That's a niche where you actually have an area where someone needs something specific. It's a product category, but they have a specific thing that they do with that product, and that's where you find the niche. Now, within that niche, you need to be able to tweak it slightly where you can find a slightly better product. So if you actually have an interest in one of these areas, and let's say you like fishing and you want some sunglasses for fishing and you buy some and you find they're not very good, all you have to do is improve that product just slightly and then you can be competitive. But if you just start out selling sunglasses, you haven't done anything unique to stand out in the market and you haven't solved a problem. So for me, a niche is when you're solving a problem at the intersection of a product category and a thing that people do. So it's a lifestyle that people do. It's a sport and it's an activity that people do. Find a product category, an activity, and cross those over, and you'll actually get something that works. And a really good example of this as well could be products for dogs. We know they're really, really popular online, but if you just start selling products online for dogs, you'll be competing with every other person out there that's doing that. But if you just did something really specific, like raincoats for dogs, and you did raincoats for small dogs, you've found a problem, an area, an activity, and a product category that all crosses over into something. And all you would do is buy a whole bunch of raincoats for small dogs, see if they're any good, and then you would go and build one better. Now, the way you would discover that this is a niche is either you were looking at the Google Trend data for the types of dog products that people were searching for online, or you might have talked to your friends that have dogs and they say, I'm finding it really difficult to find a raincoat for my small dog. They're all too big, they don't fit properly, whatever. So you then have to buy those products, see what's wrong with them, analyze the problem, and then design or improve on that thing. And sometimes it's actually just taking an existing product that's out there and communicating those features and benefits better so people know how to fit it properly and they can make sure they pick the right size for their dog. All of those things are things that just aren't done very well sometimes, and you can improve upon them. You don't even have to change the product. You can just actually improve the instructions so people know how to use it. We've all tried to assemble something at home sometimes that just doesn't have very good instructions. So you don't always have to change the product. Sometimes you can just explain how the product works better, and the people who buy it are more satisfied and happier, and then they put really good reviews up. So that's the process, is that identifying a niche is really where the activity that people do overlaps with the product category, and then you can find problems inside that activity where the products that are available in that category aren't quite a fit for that activity. It might be a really new activity. For example, pickleball just took off in the last couple of years, and so all the equipment for tennis and squash doesn't really relate to pickleball. So you need a whole bunch of new equipment that does. And then there's a whole bunch of new products and they don't work very well and they're not quite the right fit. And so over time, those improve based on the feedback from the customers and the producers of those products improving what they offer. So a niche, especially a new one, is like the Wild West. It's completely chaotic, and then those things settle down over time. So you're looking for new areas of opportunities, new activities that people are doing, and whether or not the existing product categories are a match for those things. Once you find that combination, that overlap, you can find an opportunity that you can exploit for a while. However, other people will rush in there and do the same thing, because if you do something well, if you start solving a problem for people and selling a product, other people will notice and they'll copy what you're doing. You only ever have first mover advantage to do this. If you want to protect your product with a patent and with copyright protection and design registrations for your IP, you can do all that stuff, but it's really expensive and most people don't bother. They just sell something online for a while, they hope they'll make some money, and then they move on to the next thing. You'll find this out as you go, because you'll either find you're making a whole bunch of money in that niche and you can justify the expense of protecting what you've made, or you're not making enough money and you move on to the next thing. So it will tend to happen pretty organically as you're going, and you'll get feedback from the industry as to what happens, which is also the reason that a lot of people who do e-commerce businesses, they want to make a whole bunch of money fast by spending a lot of money on advertising. Then they want to get that entire business acquired by another company, which is called an aggregator. They buy all these different e-commerce companies and they get scale from the advertising they buy. Once the company is sold to an aggregator, it's the aggregator's problem to worry about if there's IP protection and there's patents and all that sort of stuff. Like anytime you watch a Shark Tank episode and they ask, do you have a patent for this thing? They don't even want to invest unless it's got a patent. So that's an issue that you have to think about. Once you've found a niche and you're making some money, how much protection do you need for that? Or do you just want to make a little bit of money in that niche and then move on to the next one because you've got some capital to actually exploit a bigger niche that you always wanted to go into? So that's my point around niche. It's activity mixed with product category for a limited time to see if you can make some money there, and then you usually move on to the next one.